We are today at Seatown. It is New Year's Eve, 31st of December. Beautiful. Chilly winter day. I think the temperature is just above zero. So it's frosty. Eva is excited to be playing with her new Christmas present. Yeah, we're just going to have a wander along the beach. The tide is out as far as it's going to go out today, and it doesn't come back in for a couple of more hours. Just going to have a wander along, see what we can find. So I think every time we've come to this beach, it's been a little bit different from the time before. And you can see how the winter's storms have pushed all the sediment up here. Usually this beach is a bit flatter than this, but the stormy conditions we had just before Christmas have piled up the gravel into these banks. Slightly misty back there towards Ypres and West Bay, and clear over here towards Charmouth and Lyme Regis. I think I might get down on this bit here. I'm not going to go too close to the waves because I don't want to get boots full of water, but we can have a wander down here. These darker pieces of stone here are iron pyrite nodules. And sometimes you find ammonites that have been infilled with pyrite. So yeah, we're just going to have a very gentle, relaxed wander along here. Usual little bit of fossil hunting. Hopefully we'll find something to look at. And we brought warm drinks and homemade jam tarts, which we'll have a look at when we get up to the far end of the beach. We'll sit on a rock and have a snack. Well, there's the first fossil. That's a piece of tumbled belemnite. It's not worth keeping that bit, but that's quite a common fossil here. I've got lots of better specimens than that back at home. Right, I will turn the camera off to conserve battery. I'll turn it back on when we've got something to look at. This is probably a piece of Lyme Bay agate. It's a kind of waxy chalcedony that's common on this beach. It's a quartz mineral and it has a kind of translucency to it. Sometimes you find really clear pieces, but most often it's a kind of milky translucency. There's another bit, but you can see the light being transmitted through there. Occasionally I found really nice clear pieces here. Perhaps we'll find one of those today. And the best way to do that actually is to come in the part where it's wet here and look back towards the sun, because you can see, you know, we can see there's a translucent bit there. So you can get an idea. If you look down here, you'll see it. Oh, Eva, I picked up a rock. They're gone. Now, I saw a nice piece just then before Eva was woofing. There we go. There's a bit. So yeah, looking back towards the sunshine is how you get to see the clearer pieces. Some of these would probably tumble quite well. That's... Now I thought that might have been a piece of a large ammonite, but it's not. It's just a rock. And there's a piece of Lime Bay agate with some nice... I mean, it's called agate, but it doesn't typically have banding in it, but this one has. So that's got a little bit of banding or a little bit of striations of some sort in there. I mean, that would potentially tumble quite well. It's got a little bit of translucency to it. The brown would probably tumble off. This is iron staining on the outside. Is that worth taking home for the tumbler? Yeah, I think that one might go in my pocket. Right, there's another piece with some kind of striations in it. That's not banding, it's just probably like sedimentary layering or something. And there's a piece with some good translucency. Anyway, like I say, we're looking for fossils today, really, and I'm noticing a few of the waves are getting a little bit more choppy, so I'm just going to watch myself. Right, again, camera off until something turns up. So this is interesting. A green stone. Can't really actually see quite how green it is. I'll just lick it so you can see how green that is. That's an unusual thing to find on this beach. Most of the beach is composed of limestone pebbles or lias pebbles, or, you know, sedimentary big pebbles like this one, and flints, which are anywhere from grey through to kind of toffee coloured brown. So finding green stones on this beach is quite unusual. I don't know what this is. Perhaps if you've got any ideas what this might be, let me know in the comments. I'm not taking that home. Here's an interesting thing though. So that's a piece of, I think, lias, and we can see the outlines of oyster shells, bivalves, various things. Might be brachiopods, but various mollusks and invertebrates embedded in that rock. Quite common to find this kind of rock because it was quarried here in the hills. So you find this rock in flagstones and paving stones, and sometimes like the flooring stones in old churches. And often where they've dressed the stone and polished it smooth, you get this wonderful cross section of all of the fossils in there. Usually just bivalves or similar, but sometimes ammonites and other things. I thought that might have been something, but it's not. This flat area here is a wonderful place to look for fossils. I've mentioned in previous videos, lots of people go digging up in the cliffs and they will find things up there, but often those fossils aren't very durable. However, if anything manages to survive being washed out of the cliffs and tumbled in all these rocks, it's usually a more durable fossil. And so this is the place to look for fossils that you really want to keep, because if they survive down here, they're probably not just going to crumble and fall apart as soon as you get them home. It's also a good place to look because the sea is continually turning things over here. So there's a fairly good bet that there'll be things to see here that other people have missed because they were underneath the sand on the last tide. So yeah, I much prefer to search for fossils on the foreshore, even though you will find fewer fossils down here. What you typically find is better quality fossils. I mean, also it's just not a very good idea to clamber all over the cliffs and dig holes in them. That's just not a smart thing to do. Here's something potentially interesting. This is a pyrite nodule, and it tends to look a bit like a fossil, but I think that is just a concretion. However, it's a particularly pretty one. I don't know, that might be the outline of an ammonite round there that's been infilled with pyrite. I think it is actually. So you can just about see the spiral form of an ammonite imprint that's been infilled with iron pyrite that has little sparkly gold spots on it, because that's the colour of pyrite crystals. I don't think that one's worth taking home, although it would stand up, you know, just polish a little bit off that bottom and it would stand up rather nicely, but it's just a piece of pyrite. I think we can do better. Well, I hope we can do better. So I'm going to keep on looking, because I want to find a fossil that looks like what it is. Jenny's way ahead of me up the beach there, mainly because I'm dawdling and looking at rocks. It's often the case that by the time I catch up with her, Jenny's found more interesting things than I have. Here's another one that's interesting. Look at that. And again, this is just a pyrite concretion. This is a pyrite nodule. That shape is to do with the way that the nodule grew inside the sedimentary layers. So it started from some little seed that may have been an organism, or it might have just been some particle, and then that grew and expanded and became this pyrite nodule. It is an interesting shape, but that's not enough to make me want to take it home. I think we'll leave that for someone else. Here's what's certainly a section of a large ammonite. You can kind of see the ridges there. Those would be the ridges on the shell. I've got better pieces than that in my collection, and the idea here is not to fill up my pockets with stuff that will just weigh me down. We're looking for things that are as good or better than what I already collected in previous videos and previous trips to this beach. As usual, it's possible that you've spotted something on camera that my eyes didn't see. My eyes are not always looking where the camera is pointing. So if you spot something that you think I've missed that was an interesting fossil, not that I can come back here and get it because everything will be tumbled around before then, but if you see something you think I missed and you think you know what it is, do let us know in the comments. Include a timestamp and perhaps a rough idea of whereabouts in the frame it is, and everyone can have a look and see the stuff that I didn't point out. These are more pyrite nodules down here, so it's worth looking around. They tend to aggregate, they tend to get collected together into one place, and so you find a little drift of pyrite nodules, and that's sometimes because that's where they're weathering out, but sometimes that's just because the conditions are collecting them there, you know, they happen to settle out there. But worth slowing down and having a look when we find those, because some of the fossils here are composed of pyrite. So we're getting close to the end of the beach now, and actually this is the part where I normally find better fossils, so there's everything to play for still. I mean, as usual, I won't be sad if I come home empty-handed, because if nothing else, it's just a beautiful day to be here enjoying the comparative solitude of this location. You know, there's a few people way back down the beach there. Jenny's going to be waiting for me at the end of the beach this direction. Apart from that, we've got pretty much the place to ourselves, and it's a beautiful day. Look at the sky and the sea. Listen to the waves breaking successively along the beach, coming in at an angle. The waves come in at an angle here today, so you can see them breaking successively all the way along the beach. So yeah, I shan't be at all downhearted if I go home with empty pockets today, because there are other things to fill up. There is what looks like a nice bit of Lime Bay agate. Yep, nice translucency on that bit, but it's a bit plain, so I think we'll leave that. But there's a lot of that mineral here. It's got a common form of chalcedony. on this particular shore, well, in the entirety of Lyme Bay, which is this area. I can hear Eva woofing up there. So yeah, last time I came here there were rocks exposed here. There were great big boulders that had come down off the cliffs and were being weathered. Those are all buried under these sediments at the moment. Actually, I saw something there that's worth talking about. So there's a very red looking stone, and it would be tempting to think that that might be jasper, but it's not. That's just a piece of flint. That's a piece of flint or chert that's been cooked in a beach bonfire. So somebody's had a beach fire here with some driftwood or something, and that is a cooked flint. They typically turn red because of the iron content in them. They often explode because of the water content in them. You want that one? So yeah, there's another one that's probably been in a beach fire. Slightly reddish colour. Eva. Eva's having the time of her life. Favourite kind of beach, isn't it, Eva? Stones and diggy sediments. This whole bit I'm standing on here is new as well. So there's a, yeah, this has been completely reformed. So this bay and then this little pile of stuff here this is not normally like this. Normally the beach is pretty much straight from start to finish. So this whole collection of pebbles here is fairly new. Again, there's another flint pebble that's been cooked in a beach fire, making it red. So if we would tumble that red is all on the surface. Oh, Eva, honestly. That red's all on the surface. So if we were to tumble that, it would just tumble off, and it's probably grey underneath. So I assume over the next few months this beach will level itself back out again, straighten itself out through the action of the wind and the waves, and this big lump of gravel that's here at the moment will just be dispersed. There's another piece of Lyme Bay agate. That's a very nice, but it looks like that one for you. Okay, you're going the wrong way. You're looking in the wrong place. Back a bit. Back a bit. No, it's not over there, is it? She will find it. She'll pick the scent of it from scent of my hands from it. She'll find it. Here she goes. I'm getting there. There you go. That is the stone that I threw, and just that brief contact with my hand is enough to put my scent on it so that she can find it. She's had a powerful little nose, that dog. So in my experience, this end of the beach is better for fossils than further along, but that might all be turned on its head today because everything has been moved around, tumbled around, transported by the wind and waves, and so maybe that isn't true anymore. We will see. I've seen Jenny stoop to pick up a few things, so she might have had better luck than me. Right, well, here we are at the end of the beach, and yeah, no fossils today. Well, apart from those few little bits we looked at. But not to worry. There is still the promise of jam tarts and coffee and a pleasant walk back along the beach when we're done. And you know, you might find something on the way back, you never know. But yeah, things are very, very different here to what I would normally expect to find at this end of the beach. I will have a little look in amongst these rocks here, because this is quite a good place for smaller fossils as well, especially belemnites and pieces of crinoid stem. So we'll have a little look around here as well. So, homemade jam tarts. This is made from a bit of scrap of leftover pastry and my purple jam. And you've got some dog biscuits somewhere. So, review of homemade jam tart. Giant jam tart. Of course it's good, why wouldn't it be? It's pastry and jam. So this little bit down here hasn't changed so much, protected by this barrier of rocks here. And we can find here death plates with lots of very slender belemnites in it. We'll probably see crinoid fossils as well. We might see the occasional ammonite in here. I'm not going to walk too much on this stuff because it looks like rock, but it is in fact clay, compacted clay, and it can be very slippery. You all right? Good. Sometimes these big clay slumps can be a good place to find fossils just popping out loose. I know people do find some quite impressive ammonites and things in these clay slumps. I've never been quite that lucky. I think you have to get down here first thing after the falling tide, after a storm, and that doesn't find the very best fossils weathered out on the edge of the cliffs. So these lines here, so there's a series of striations here on the rock, and this is the successive bedding planes of the shale, or actually it's more like a clay mudstone. Here's a piece of a very large bivalve shell weathering out. More bits of it there, something like an oyster or a large scallop. There's a long belemnite that's very nearly weathered out, so you know, if I had the tools we could scrape away at that and probably get that out. It almost certainly won't come out in one piece because they seldom do. There's an interesting chunk of something sedimentary with bits of shell in it, although some of those might just be veins of calcite. Well, yeah, it does look like we're going to go home empty-handed today. That's interesting. I wonder what's come out of that hole. I wonder if that's where somebody's chiseled something out, or if that's the actual imprint of something. I tend to think that's something been chiseled out, because most of what's here is those belemnites. So here's a little tiny section of an ammonite. You can perhaps see the pattern on the, you know, pattern of ridges there. Tiny little piece of a very flattened ammonite. Not worth taking home. I'll continue searching down here and amongst this fine stuff, because I was just chatting to somebody else who's along here fossil hunting, and they've not had much luck today either. So I think it's probably just the way the conditions have happened to be today. That is almost certainly something. A flattened crinoid stem perhaps. So yeah, it's not just me. The other people we just spoke to haven't had much luck either. I mean, I say haven't had much luck. It's a beautiful place. We're lucky just to be here. So Jenny's got the best find of the day. Look at that. A rather nice piece of ammonite. It's a lovely section of ammonite actually. You can really see the segments. Definitely, well, not just that it's the only find of the day, but that's actually quite a nice find for this beach. So yeah, we're taking that one home then. So heading back now, I'm going to head back along this top ridge here and see if we can maybe see something different here. Jenny's already found the star specimen, in fact the only specimen, but also the best one. So I doubt I shall beat that, but while keeping my eyes peeled. So we're just going to head back along the beach. Eva's going to continue chasing rocks. And we'll see what we can find on the way back. So there's not an awful lot to show for our visit today, but we'll just quickly head back to Studio Shrimp just to review the finds. So these are the two finds for today. This one, a lovely piece of ammonite here. You can see it's a bit worn down. So the stuff that's in the depressed areas here is the original shell material, possibly with some of the minerals replaced. But that represents the actual shell. The raised parts of the ridges have been worn down, so the shell material would have been more bumpy and covering all of this, but that's been worn down. So this is just the sedimentary stone that infilled. But it's still a very nice piece, and you can see exactly what it is. That's a nice specimen. It's a good find. And this, which is a piece of that Lime Bay agate, which is only going to look... It needs to be wet to actually see what's going on in there. And I will get round to tumbling this sometime when I've got enough stuff to put in the rock tumbler. And I need to get some more abrasives actually, so we'll tumble this and see what we end up with. Like I say, I think all of that brown will disappear, and I think we'll end up with something that's possibly a pale lilac colour, because that's the typical colour for Lime Bay agate, but it might just be milky white, and hopefully we'll get a better view of what these actual striations are. And that's it. And there was one other piece which you're just about to see, which actually I regret leaving on the beach now, but even if I went back right now, I'd never find that piece again. Anyway, back to beach shrimp. Oh, here's something I think we might take home. It's just a piece of probably the blue lias here, but it's got lots of little segments of crinoid stems in it. Actually, do you know what? I'm not going to take that home. Let's just have a look at it, appreciate it, and leave it here. It is an interesting specimen, but I don't need a house full of rocks. Yeah, tempted, but not today. So, thanks for joining us on this stroll along Seatown Beach on New Year's Eve. I hope that's been in some way relaxing. It certainly has for us. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.